We begin 2,800 meters above sea level in Ecuador. The farm sits at precisely 0.15 degrees south latitude, 78.42 degrees west longitude. The altitude is not arbitrary. At this elevation, the atmospheric pressure is 545 millibars, compared to 1,013 millibars at sea level. This means there is 46% less oxygen in the air. The rose plant responds to this oxygen scarcity by developing thicker cell walls. The cells in the petals are 23% thicker than roses grown at sea level. This thickness makes the petals more durable. They can withstand the mechanical stress of being packed in boxes, stacked on pallets, and loaded into aircraft cargo holds. The greenhouse is 400 meters long and 100 meters wide. The roof is 6 meters high at the peak. The covering material is polyethylene film, 200 microns thick, treated with ultraviolet stabilizers that prevent degradation from sunlight. This film will last 5 years before it needs replacement. Inside the greenhouse, light intensity is measured in micromoles per square meter per second. On a clear day, the light intensity outside reaches 2,000 micromoles. Inside, the polyethylene film reduces this to 1,600 micromoles. The roses need a minimum of 800 micromoles to grow properly. Below this threshold, the stems become weak and the flowers small. The temperature is controlled by ventilation. The greenhouse has 80 vents along each side, rectangular openings 2 meters wide and 1 meter tall. These vents open and close automatically based on temperature sensors. When the interior temperature exceeds 20 degrees Celsius, the vents open. Cool air flows in from outside. When the temperature drops below 17 degrees, the vents close. At night, the temperature drops to 12 degrees. This temperature differential, 8 degrees between day and night, is essential. Roses are photoperiodic plants. They measure day and night, not just by light, but by temperature. The 8-degree drop signals to the plant that night has occurred. Without this signal, the plant becomes confused and flowering becomes erratic. The floor of the greenhouse is covered with white plastic sheeting. This is not for cleanliness. The white surface reflects light upward, increasing the total light available to the lower leaves by approximately 15%. More light means more photosynthesis, which means faster growth. The rose plants grow in rows. Each row is raised 40 centimeters above the floor on benches made of galvanized steel. The benches are covered with a layer of volcanic rock called pumice. The pumice particles are 8 to 12 millimeters in diameter, large enough that water drains quickly, small enough that the roots can anchor. Pumice is volcanic glass full of tiny air pockets. It weighs only 600 kilograms per cubic meter compared to 1,600 kilograms for regular soil. This lightness is important because the benches must support the weight of the growing medium, the water, and the plants. A cubic meter of wet soil would collapse the bench. Pumice does not. The pumice is mixed with rice hulls at a ratio of 60% pumice, 40% rice hulls by volume. Rice hulls are the outer coating of rice grains, removed during milling. They're mostly silica, the same mineral that makes up glass and sand. Rice hulls are sterile, lightweight, and they don't decompose quickly. They last 3 to 4 years before breaking down. This mixture, pumice and rice hulls, contains zero nutrients. It's purely structural. It holds the plant upright and allows water to drain. All nutrition comes from the irrigation system. Each plant has a dripper, a small plastic emitter that delivers water directly to the base of the plant. The drippers are connected to a network of black polyethylene tubes, 16 millimeters in diameter. The tubes run along each bench with drippers spaced every 30 centimeters. The water flows through these tubes under pressure, 1.5 bar, which is roughly 22 pounds per square inch. This pressure is maintained by a pump at the irrigation control center. The pump draws water from a reservoir, a concrete tank holding 500,000 liters, located at the lowest point of the farm. The water is not just water, it's a nutrient solution. In the reservoir, concentrated fertilizers are mixed into the water at precise ratios. Nitrogen at 150 parts per million, phosphorus at 50 parts per million, potassium at 200 parts per million. calcium at 180 parts per million, magnesium at 50 parts per million, sulfur at 65 parts per million. These are the macronutrients. There are also micronutrients: iron at 3 parts per million, manganese at 0.8 parts per million, zinc at 0.3 parts per million, copper at 0.1 parts per million, boron at 0.5 parts per million, molybdenum at 0.05 parts per million. The concentration of these nutrients is measured in electrical conductivity, EC. Pure water has an EC of 0. The nutrient solution has an EC of 2.2 millisiemens per centimeter. If the EC drops below 2.0, the plants show signs of nutrient deficiency: yellowing leaves, small flowers. If it rises above 2.5, salt accumulates in the root zone and the plants die from osmotic stress. The pH is adjusted with phosphoric acid. The acid is added automatically by a dosing pump, a small peristaltic pump that adds 50 milliliters of acid per 1,000 liters of water. This brings the pH down from 7.0 to 5.8. At pH 5.8, all nutrients are available to the plant. At pH 6.5, iron becomes insoluble and precipitates out. At pH 5.0, aluminum becomes toxic. The irrigation system runs 6 times per day. Each irrigation event lasts 3 minutes. During those 3 minutes, each dripper delivers 250 milliliters of solution. That's 1,500 milliliters per plant per day, 1.5 liters. Of this, approximately 400 milliliters drains away, carrying excess salts with it. The remaining 100 milliliters is absorbed by the plant or evaporates. A mature rose plant transpires, loses water through its leaves, at a rate of 800 milliliters per day when conditions are warm and sunny. On cool, cloudy days, the rate drops to 400 milliliters. The irrigation schedule is adjusted based on weather forecasts: more water on sunny days, less on cloudy days. The rose variety grown here is called Freedom. It was developed in the Netherlands in 1982 by a breeding company called Lex Vaughan. The genetics of Freedom make it ideal for export. The stems grow straight and long, the buds are large and symmetrical, the petals are thick and don't shatter easily, and the vase life is 10 to 12 days. Each plant produces approximately 200 stems per year. The farm has 320,000 plants. That's 64 million stems per year, or 175,000 stems per day. During the 2 weeks before Valentine's Day, production increases to 250,000 stems per day because the plants are forced to produce more by adjusting temperature and light. The forcing process begins 8 weeks before Valentine's Day. The greenhouse temperature is raised by 2 degrees, from 18 to 20 during the day. The vents are kept partially closed to trap heat. This higher temperature accelerates growth. A stem that would normally take 70 days to develop from bud break to harvest takes only 60 days at the higher temperature. Additionally, supplemental lighting is added. High-pressure sodium lamps are suspended from the greenhouse roof, spaced every 10 meters. These lamps emit 600 watts each and provide an additional 300 micromoles of light. They turn on at 4 am and turn off at 8 am, extending the photo period from 12 hours to 16 hours. The combination of higher temperature and longer photo period tricks the plant into thinking it's summer. The plant responds by producing more stems. But this forcing comes at a cost. The plant exhausts its energy reserves. After Valentine's Day, production drops by 30% for 2 months, while the plant recovers. The harvest begins at 6 am. The workers arrive by bus from the nearby town of Cayambe, 15 kilometers away. There are 40 workers in the harvest crew. Each worker is assigned 4 rows, approximately 1,000 plants. They wear specific clothing: long-sleeved shirts to protect from thorns, rubber boots because the floor is wet, wide-brimmed hats to shield from the sun that streams through the polyethylene, and cloth gloves with rubber grips on the palms and fingers. Each worker carries a bucket, a white plastic bucket that holds 15 liters. The bucket is filled with a solution before harvest begins. The solution is water mixed with aluminum sulfate and sucrose. The aluminum sulfate concentration is 300 parts per million. The sucrose concentration is 2% by weight. The aluminum sulfate serves one purpose. It lowers the pH of the water to 3.5. At this pH, the xylem vessels in the stem remain open and water flows freely. The sucrose provides energy. A cut flower cannot photosynthesize because it has been separated from its root system. It cannot make its own food. Without external sugar, it starves. The worker walks slowly down the row, examining each plant. They're looking for stems that are ready to harvest. The readiness is determined by the stage of bud development. There are 6 stages, numbered 1 through 6. Stage 1 is a tight bud. The sepals are still wrapped around the flower, completely enclosing. The petals. This is too early. If harvested at stage 1, the bud will never open. Stage 2 is when the sepals begin to reflex. They bend downward, revealing the first hint of petal color. The bud is still firm and compact. This is the optimal harvest stage for export flowers. At stage 2, the flower has enough energy stored to complete its development in the vase. Stage 3 is when the outer petals begin to unfurl. The bud opens slightly, forming a cup shape. This stage is acceptable for local sales, but not for export. The flower is too far along and won't survive the journey. The worker identifies a stem at stage 2. They grasp the stem with their left hand, approximately 60 centimeters below the bud. With their right hand, they open the secateurs, curved pruning scissors with sharp bypass blades. They position the yaw blades 5 millimeters above a 5-leaflet node. This location is critical. The rose plant grows in a specific pattern. Each stem has leaves arranged in an alternating spiral. Some leaves have 3 leaflets, some have 5. The 5-leaflet nodes are stronger and more productive. When the stem is cut above a 5-leaflet node, the plant will produce a new flowering stem from the axillary bud at that node. This new stem will be ready to harvest in 60 days. The worker makes the cut at a 45-degree angle. This angle increases the surface area of the cut end, which improves water uptake. It also prevents the stem from sitting flat on the bottom of the bucket, which would block the cut end and prevent water from entering. The cut must be clean, a single smooth motion that severs all tissue in one pass. If the worker hesitates and makes multiple cuts, the stem is crushed. Crushing damages the xylem vessels, the microscopic tubes that transport water from the cut end to the flower. Damaged xylem means reduced water uptake, which means faster wilting. Immediately after cutting, the stem is placed in the bucket. The time from cut to water must be less than 15 seconds. This is not arbitrary. The moment the stem is cut, air begins to enter the xylem vessels. Air bubbles form and rise up the stem. These air embolisms block water transport. Research has shown that after 30 seconds out of water, enough air enters the stem to reduce water uptake by 50%. After 60 seconds, water uptake is reduced by 80%. The flower will still look fine initially, but within 24 hours it will wilt because the damaged xylem cannot supply enough water to the petals. The worker continues down the row, cutting stems and placing them in the bucket. They can harvest approximately 200 stems between 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. 8 hours of work. That's 150 stems per hour, or 2.5 stems per minute, or 1 stem every 24 seconds. When the bucket is full, approximately 50 stems, the worker carries it to the processing shed. The processing shed is a separate building adjacent to the greenhouse, 30 meters long and 15 meters wide. The interior is divided into sections: receiving, grading, bunching, packing, and cold storage. The receiving area is where workers deposit their buckets. A receiving clerk counts the stems in each bucket and records the number next to the worker's name on a whiteboard. This is how workers are paid: by the stem. The rate is 0.01 per stem. A worker who harvests 200 stems earns $12 per day. From receiving, the stems move to grading. The grading table is 15 meters long, made of stainless steel. 12 workers stand along the table, 6 on each side. The stems are dumped from the buckets onto the table in piles. Each worker picks up 1 stem at a time and examines it. the stem is placed against a measuring bar fixed to the edge of the table. The bar has marks every 10 centimeters, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. A stem that measures 79 centimeters cannot be sold as 80. It's graded as 70. The worker holds the stem at arm's length and sights down it, checking for curvature. Stems with less than 3 degrees of deviation are grade A. Stems with 3 to 8 degrees are grade B, more than 8 degrees is grade C. The bud diameter is measured using a caliper. Grade A buds are 4 to 5 centimeters. Grade B is 3 to 4 centimeters. Below 3 centimeters is grade C. The leaves are examined for yellowing, browning, spotting, holes, or tears. Any defect results in downgrading. After examination, the stem is sorted into one of 4 bins, A80, A70, B60, or C other. About 60% of stems are grade A. About 30% are grade B, about 8% are grade C. About 2% are rejected entirely and composted. From grading, the stems move to bunching. The bunching workers take stems from the A80 bin and group them in sets of 25. The 25 stems are arranged so the buds are level. The stems are secured with a rubber band at the base and another just below the flower heads. The rubber bands are color-coded by variety, red for freedom. The bunches are placed in plastic sleeves to protect the buds. 8 bunches, 200 stems, are packed into a cardboard box. The box dimensions are 100 centimeters long, 40 centimeters wide, 30 centimeters deep. The box is lined with waxed paper and absorbent material at the bottom. A label with a barcode is affixed. The box weighs 18 kilograms. The box is carried to the cold room, a refrigerated chamber maintained at exactly 2 degrees Celsius. The temperature is not 1 degree, not 3 degrees, 2 degrees. At this temperature, the metabolic rate of the flower drops to approximately 10% of its rate at room temperature. The cold room is dark. Darkness prevents photosynthesis, which would consume energy. The humidity is maintained at 80 to 85% to prevent dehydration. The boxes are stacked on wooden pallets. Each pallet holds 10 boxes, 2,000 stems. The pallets are wrapped with stretch film and labeled with a master barcode. The pallets remain in the cold room for a minimum of 4 hours for pre-cooling. The roses cool from 18 degrees to 2 degrees at a rate of 4 degrees per hour. The truck arrives at 8 p.m. It's a Mercedes-Benz Actros with a Thermo King refrigeration unit that maintains the cargo bay at 2 degrees Celsius with a variance of plus or minus 0.5 degrees. The boxes are loaded with 5 centimeters of airspace between layers for circulation. The truck departs at 8:35 p.m. for the 65-kilometer journey to Quito International Airport. The road winds through mountains, climbing to 3,100 meters, then descending to the airport at 2,400 meters. The journey takes 1 hour and 38 minutes at an average speed of 40 kilometers per hour. Inside the trailer, the temperature remains constant at 2 degrees. The refrigeration unit's diesel engine runs continuously, burning 40 liters of fuel during the journey. At 10:13 p.m., the truck arrives at the cargo terminal. There are 30 trucks waiting. The driver parks in position 14. Each truck takes 20 minutes to unload, so the wait is approximately 4.5 hours. At 2:47 a.m., the truck backs up to the loading dock. The temperature is verified at 2.0 degrees. A forklift removes the pallets, scanning each barcode. The pallets are taken to the terminal's cold storage, 8,000 square meters, divided into 6 rooms, all at 2 degrees. The pallets sit in cold storage for an average of 3 hours. At 4:30 a.m., they're moved to the loading staging area for Flight 523 to Miami. The Boeing 747-400F lands at 4:52 a.m. This aircraft, registration N418MC, was manufactured in 1992. It has 4 Pratt & Whitney PW4062 engines producing 63,300 pounds of thrust each at sea level, but only 47,000 pounds each at Quito's 2,400-meter elevation. The reduced air density limits the maximum takeoff weight to 330,000 kilograms, 80% of the sea level maximum, of 412,175 kilograms. The cargo door opens at the left side of the fuselage, 3.5 meters wide and 3.0 meters tall. It takes 90 seconds to fully open on hydraulic actuators. A K-loader, a scissor lift truck, positions a pallet at the cargo door height and pushes it into the aircraft on motorized rollers. The main deck holds 30 pallets. The lower deck holds 32 more. Each pallet is locked with PDQ locks, 22 locking points per pallet. The weight distribution must place the center of gravity between 18% and 30% of the mean aerodynamic chord. Outside this range, the aircraft cannot be controlled. Loading takes 90 minutes. The cargo door closes at 6:10 a.m. The engines start with a high-pitched whine that builds to a roar. At 6:15 a.m., the aircraft begins taxiing to runway 35 at 6:28 a.m. The tower clears flight 523 for takeoff. The pilot advances the throttles to 98% power, the maximum available at this altitude. All four engines produce 188,000 pounds of thrust. The aircraft accelerates down the 4,100-meter runway. At 138 knots, the nose lifts. At 165 knots, the main wheels leave the ground. The aircraft is airborne. The flight plan calls for Miami International Airport, 2,120 nautical miles away. At a cruising speed of 490 knots and an altitude of 35,000 feet, the flight will take 5 hours and 45 minutes. As the aircraft climbs, the cargo hold temperature drops. At 10,000 feet, it's -5 degrees. At 20,000 feet, -15 degrees. At cruising altitude, -20 degrees. The roses freeze solid. At -20 degrees, all cellular activity stops. The flowers don't respire, don't age, don't exist in time. They're suspended in a state of perfect preservation. This freezing is intentional and safe because the roses were pre-chilled to 2 degrees. The ice crystals that form are small and don't rupture cell walls. A room temperature rose frozen suddenly would be destroyed by large, jagged ice crystals. At 35,000 feet, the 747 crosses over Colombia, Jamaica, and Cuba. In the frozen darkness of the cargo hold, 2.4 million rose stems wait. The 747 begins its descent at 10:02 a.m. local time. Miami International Airport appears, a complex covering 1,300 hectares. The cargo area handles 20 million flowers on a normal day. During Valentine's season, 60 million per day. The aircraft touches down on runway AR at 10:18 a.m. The reversers deploy, slowing the 350,000-kilogram aircraft in 1,400 meters. By 10:20 a.m., it's taxiing to cargo ramp T12. The cargo door opens at 10:24 a.m. Miami air at 24 degrees enters the cargo hold at -15 degrees. This 39-degree difference creates instant condensation. Frost forms on the frozen metal. K-loaders remove the pallets. Each pallet is wrapped in a thermal blanket that slows warming from 3 degrees per hour to 1 degree per hour. The pallets are driven to Building C47, a refrigerated warehouse covering 28,000 square meters. The walls are 30 centimeters thick, insulated with polyurethane foam. Interior temperature, 2 degrees Celsius. Humidity, 80%. Inside, boxes are scanned and sorted by destination. But first, they must pass through U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service inspects 2% of each shipment for pests. Insects, fungi, bacteria, viruses. Inspectors examine stems under magnification, looking for aphids, thrips, spider mites, whiteflies. They check for fungal infections and soil contamination. Any contamination means the entire shipment is incinerated. The rejection rate is 0.3%. Out of every 1,000 shipments, 3 are destroyed. Approved boxes receive green stickers and are loaded onto refrigerated delivery trucks. These trucks maintain 2 degrees with 0.5 degree variance using Thermo King units. The trucks deliver to wholesalers throughout Miami. The largest wholesaler receives 15 trucks per day during Valentine's season. Their facility is 12,000 square meters at 2 degrees. Workers unpack boxes and create mixed bunches, 25 red, 25 pink, 25 white, 25 yellow. These are packed into smaller boxes for local florists. Local delivery trucks leave at 4 a.m. to reach florists before they open at 9 a.m. The florist receives delivery at 7:30 a.m. The shop has 80 square meters of retail space and a 20 square meter cooler at 2 degrees. The owner immediately moves boxes into the cooler. Each bunch is removed and the rubber band cut. The stems are recut 2 centimeters removed from the bottom. This fresh cut is essential. During transport, bacteria have colonized the cut surface, forming a biofilm that blocks water uptake. Additionally, the xylem vessels have begun sealing through tylosis, balloon-like protrusions that grow into the vessels. The scissors must be sharp. Dull blades crush xylem vessels. The angle must be 45 degrees to increase surface area and prevent the stem from sitting flat. Immediately after cutting, stems are placed in flour food solution. This solution contains 4 critical ingredients: sucrose at 2% concentration, 20 grams per liter. This provides energy. Too much is toxic. Concentrations above 3% cause cells to collapse from osmotic pressure. Hydroxyquinoline citrate at 200 parts per million. This biocide kills bacteria that multiply exponentially and clog xylem vessels. Citric acid at 300 parts per million. This lowers pH from 7.0 to 3.8. At this acidity, xylem vessels remain open. At neutral pH, they close. A surfactant at 50 parts per million reduces water's surface tension, increasing uptake by 20%. The stems sit in this solution for 4 hours, called conditioning. Water moves up through capillary action and osmotic pressure. Cells rehydrate, petals firm up, colors deepen. After conditioning, guard petals are removed, the outer 3 to 5 petals that protected inner petals during shipping but are now damaged. Stems are cut to desired length, 50 centimeters for bouquets, 70 for tall vases, 30 for centerpieces. Thorns are removed with a stripping tool, a V-shaped blade that slides down the stem without damaging the bark and phloem tissue. Lower, leaves are removed. Submerged leaves rot and produce bacteria. The top 2 to 3 leaves remain. The rose is placed in the display cooler at 4 degrees, slightly warmer than the back cooler to prevent condensation when brought to room temperature. A customer enters at 3 p.m. on February 13th. They want a dozen in red roses. The florist selects 12 freedom stems from the back cooler. Each stem is examined. The bud is squeezed. It should feel firm but not hard. Hard indicates harvested too early. Soft indicates past prime. Ideal has slight give, like a ripe avocado. Petal edges are checked for browning, indicating dehydration. Stems are sighted down their length for straightness. Deviation over 5 degrees is rejected. Leaves should be dark green, not yellow or brown. Yellowing indicates nitrogen deficiency. Browning indicates fungal infection. The 12 selected stems are arranged in a spiral pattern, each at 45 degrees to the previous, creating a domed European hand-tied bouquet. Stems are secured with floral, tape-wrapped 3 times just below the lowest flower head. Stems are trimmed to equal length with a knife underwater to prevent air entering xylem vessels. The bouquet is wrapped in cellophane or craft paper and a care card attached with instructions. The customer pays $75. The breakdown: farm received $12, airline $20, importer $8, wholesaler $12, florist's margin $23 covering rent, utilities, labor, and 10% waste. The customer places the bouquet in their car, currently 28 degrees Celsius. The roses experience a 24-degree temperature shock. Respiration accelerates. At 2 degrees, the rose consumed 2 milligrams of sugar per hour. At 28 degrees, consumption jumps to 30 milligrams per hour, a 15-fold increase. The 25-minute drive home in the hot car warms the roses to 26 degrees. The petals begin to wilt. At home, the customer fills a vase with cold tap water at 15 degrees. They don't add flower food. They don't recut the stems. They place the roses directly in the vase. The dining room is 22 degrees. Water uptake is sluggish because air bubbles formed during the 25 minutes out of water. The tap water pH of 7.2 partially closes xylem vessels. Over 6 hours, the roses gradually hydrate. By 9 p.m., they look better. Petals have firmed, colors deepened. The next morning, Valentine's Day, the roses look perfect. The buds have opened to stage 3, outer petals fully reflexed, inner petals unfurling. But decline is inevitable. At room temperature, respiring rapidly, consuming sugar with no flower food, bacteria multiply, doubling every 20 minutes. By evening, billions of bacteria form a biofilm on cut ends. By February 15th, 48 hours after purchase, petal edges curl, colors fade. 2 roses develop bent neck. The flower head droops because water cannot reach it. Xylem vessels are blocked by bacteria. In tylosis, the customer changes the water. This helps slightly, but doesn't remove bacteria already inside the stems. By February 17th, 4 days after purchase, 6 of 12 roses are dead. Petals have turned brown and fallen. The customer throws these away. By February 20th, 1 week after purchase, all roses are dead. The vase life was 7 days, slightly below average. With flower food, recutting, and cool storage, it could have been 10 to 12 days. The dead roses go to a landfill and decompose within 2 weeks, releasing carbon dioxide and methane back to the atmosphere. To understand why roses die, we must examine what happens at the cellular level. A rose petal is composed of approximately 40 million cells. Each cell contains water, proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and nucleic acids organized within a membrane. The cell membrane is made of phospholipids, molecules with a hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail arranged in a bilayer. This membrane is 7 nanometers thick, so thin that 14,000 membranes stacked would equal the thickness of a human hair. The membrane controls what enters and exits the cell. Water, oxygen, and carbon dioxide pass freely. Larger molecules require protein channels. The integrity of this membrane determines whether the cell lives or dies. When a rose is cut, several processes begin immediately. First, the wound response. Cells near the cut site detect damage and release signaling molecules, jasmonic acid and salicylic acid. These molecules trigger the production of defensive compounds to prevent infection. Second, the stress response. The flower detects that it's been separated from its root system. It can no longer access water and nutrients from the soil. Stress hormones, abscisic acid, and ethylene are produced. Ethylene is particularly important. It's a gaseous hormone, a simple molecule consisting of 2 carbon atoms and 4 hydrogen atoms. Despite its simplicity, ethylene controls senescence, the aging process in plants. Ethylene is produced in the stem and travels through air spaces in the tissue to the petals. There, it binds to receptor proteins in cell membranes. This binding triggers a cascade of events. Genes are activated, enzymes are produced, and the cell begins to dismantle itself. The rate of ethylene production determines how fast the rose ages. At 2 degrees Celsius, ethylene production is minimal. At 20 degrees, it increases tenfold. This is why temperature control is critical throughout the cold chain. When ethylene binds to its receptor, the cell activates genes that produce degradative enzymes. These enzymes break down structural components. Cellulase breaks down cellulose in the cell wall. Pectinase breaks down pectin that holds cells together. Protease breaks down proteins. Lipase breaks down membrane lipids. As these molecules are degraded, the cell loses structural integrity. The membrane becomes leaky. Water escapes. The cell dehydrates and shrinks. The petal wilts. Simultaneously, pigments degrade. Rose petals are red because they contain anthocyanins, water-soluble pigments stored in the cell's vacuole. As the cell ages, the vacuole membrane breaks down. Anthocyanins leak out and are degraded by enzymes. The red color fades to pink, then brown. The breakdown products accumulate: amino acids from proteins, simple sugars from carbohydrates, fatty acids from lipids. These products are metabolized through respiration to produce energy. Respiration occurs in mitochondria, organelles that convert sugar and oxygen into ATP, carbon dioxide, and water. A single petal cell contains approximately 200 mitochondria. The rate of respiration determines how quickly the flower consumes its stored energy. At 2 degrees, respiration is slow. At 20 degrees, it's fast. This is why cold storage extends vase life. It slows energy consumption, but respiration requires oxygen. In a vase, oxygen must diffuse from the air through the water and up the stem to reach the petals. If xylem vessels are blocked by bacteria or air bubbles, oxygen delivery is impaired. Without oxygen, the cells switch to anaerobic respiration, fermentation. This produces only 2 ATP molecules per glucose compared to 36 ATP from aerobic respiration. The cells starve even though sugar is available. Additionally, fermentation produces toxic byproducts, ethanol and lactic acid. These accumulate in the cells, further accelerating death. As cells die, they release their contents. Enzymes that were safely contained now spill out, digesting neighboring cells. The death spreads from cell to cell like a wave. This is why bent neck occurs. The cells in the stem just below the flower head die first because they're farthest from the water source. As they collapse, the stem can no longer support the weight of the flower. The head droops. Eventually, all cells in the petal die. The tissue turns brown as phenolic compounds oxidize. The petals dry out, become brittle, and fall from the stem. The entire process, from harvest to death, takes 7 to 14 days depending on conditions. Temperature, humidity, light, bacteria, air bubbles, sugar availability, and ethylene concentration all influence the timeline. The global cut flower industry is worth $30 billion per year. Of this, roses account for $9 billion. Ecuador exports $900 million worth of roses annually, approximately 100,000 tons, or 4 billion stems. The United States imports $1.5 billion worth of flowers per year. 80% arrive through Miami International. In report. During the 2 weeks before Valentine's Day, imports triple. In a single day, February 13th, Miami receives 200 cargo flights carrying flowers. That's 1 flight every 7 minutes. The logistics require perfect coordination. Farms must harvest the right quantity at the right time. Trucks must arrive when scheduled. Flights must depart on time. If any link fails, thousands of roses spoil. The economic pressure is intense. A farm that misses a flight loses the entire shipment. The roses age beyond acceptability. A delay of 24 hours can mean the difference between profit and bankruptcy. This is why the cold chain is sacred. Every degree above 2 Celsius accelerates aging. Every hour of delay reduces vase life. The system tolerates no error. The human cost is significant. Workers harvest roses in cold greenhouses at 2,800 meters, where thin air makes breathing difficult. They stand for 8 hours, bending, cutting, carrying heavy buckets. The pay is $12 per day. Grading workers examine stems under bright lights, checking for defects so small they're barely visible. Their eyes strain, their backs ache. They work in refrigerated rooms at 2 degrees, wearing jackets in a country that sits on the equator. Truck drivers navigate dangerous mountain roads at night, keeping one eye on the temperature display, knowing that if the refrigeration fails, the load is worthless. Aircraft loaders work on tarmacs in darkness, moving pallets that weigh hundreds of kilograms, racing against time because every minute, the cargo door is open, warm air enters and roses age. Florists wake at 4 a.m. to receive deliveries, spending hours conditioning stems in cold water, removing thorns, stripping leaves, arranging bouquets. Their hands are scarred from thorns and wrinkled from constant water exposure. All of this effort, millions of person-hours, thousands of flights, truckloads of diesel fuel, warehouses consuming megawatts of electricity for refrigeration, all of this to deliver a product that will be dead in a week. Why? What drives this massive global industry built on ephemeral beauty? The answer is simple. Humans need symbols. We need ways to express feelings that words cannot capture. A rose says, "I love you," in a way that the actual words cannot. It's a physical manifestation of emotion. But why does it need to be a real flower? Why not plastic? Because the impermanence is essential. A rose dies. Its death proves the gesture was costly. You spent money on something temporary. You made a sacrifice. If roses lasted forever, they would lose meaning. The value is in the dying. The beauty is in the brevity. This is why people have grown flowers for 5,000 years. Why ancient Egyptians cultivated roses. Why Romans imported flowers from Egypt at enormous expense. Why medieval monks maintained gardens. Why Dutch merchants built a global tulip trade in the 1600s. Flowers speak a language older than words. They predate human civilization. Before humans existed, flowers evolved to attract pollinators through color and scent. For 140 million years, flowers have been communicating. When we give flowers, we're participating in this ancient conversation. We're using signals that existed before language, before culture, before thought itself. The rose is particularly powerful because of its structure. The spiral arrangement of petals follows the Fibonacci sequence, each petal positioned at 137.5 degrees from the previous. This golden angle creates the most efficient packing. It's the same pattern found in pine cones, sunflowers, and galaxies. Humans find this pattern inherently beautiful. It satisfies something deep in our visual processing. We don't know why we're attracted to it, we just are. The preference is hardwired. The fragrance compounds in roses, beta-damascenone, beta-ionone, rose oxide, trigger olfactory receptors that connect directly to the limbic system, the brain's emotion center. Smell bypasses conscious thought and goes straight to feeling. This is why a rose can evoke memories decades old. Why the scent can transport you instantly to another time and place. The molecules are keys that unlock specific neural pathways associated with emotion and memory. So the rose is not just a flower, it's a technology for transmitting emotion across space and time. It's a device engineered by evolution to manipulate animal behavior. Originally bees, but now humans too. We've co-opted the rose's communication system for our own purposes. We've built a global infrastructure to deliver these signals to each other. And we maintain this infrastructure despite its absurd inefficiency, because the alternative, a world without flowers, is unthinkable. As you fall asleep tonight, roses are being harvested in Ecuador. Workers are cutting stems in greenhouses at 2,800 meters. The stems are being graded, bunched, and packed. Trucks are driving through mountain passes. Planes are being loaded. The cold chain continues. The temperature holds at 2 degrees. The flowers sleep in refrigerated darkness. Their metabolism slowed to near zero, their aging suspended, waiting to wake in someone's home and bloom for 7 days before dying. This process never stops. It runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, around the world. Millions of flowers moving through an invisible network of cold rooms, trucks, aircraft, and warehouses. And tomorrow, someone will walk into a florist and buy a dozen roses. They'll bring them home, they'll place them in a vase. The roses will open, beautiful and temporary. And for 1 week, those flowers will mean something. They'll say something that words cannot. They'll justify all the logistics, all the fuel, all the labor, all the cost. Because in the end, the rose is not about efficiency, it's about meaning. And meaning, unlike flowers, does not fade.